Welcome back to another episode of Torque. Well, today I'm going to show you how to do your gaps on your old car. This is on the 1965 Mustang convertible. I'm only going to show you a little bit, and that's going to be on the quarter panel extension. Granted, this process is the same. It doesn't matter if it's the trunk, the fenders, the doors. Process is all the same. It's very simple. It's a little time consuming, but you can make your gaps perfect just like you see on a lot of the big shows on TV. It's not a big deal. I did want to give you an update. I know I said that I would put the Chevelle up for sale. Well, it did sell, and it went to somebody in Omaha, Nebraska, and I hope they're enjoying the hell out of it. So that's a great thing. And I was going to tell you why I sold it, and that is because me and the wife want to start traveling, and when we go some places out west, and we want to get a fifth wheel. We had to get something that can pull a fifth wheel. So with that money, I ended up buying a GMC dually. And this thing's got that 6.6 Duramax diesel, 975 foot-pounds of torque. God almighty, this thing's powerful. And it should pull anything that we buy, which is really great. So let's go ahead and skip to why we're here, and that is to work on that Mustang. So let's go ahead and get started, and I'll show you the process. All right, so I know it's been a while since I made a video, just so many things going on during the fall. Plus, I'm getting to a point where everything seems like it takes forever. So I'm addressing door gaps. I've already started on this. The door gaps were just horrible on this. It was really tight at the bottom, really wide at the top. I had to add some metal onto that. Same thing with here. I had to add a bunch here. And I just want to show you guys that it's don't be afraid to do this kind of stuff. You can always grind it off. You can always take it back down. This I had to add a lot of metal there. This, believe it or not, this portion of the quarter panel was too narrow compared to the factory. So I had to split this, move this whole area, this whole section over about an 1/8 to 3/16, re-weld it, and you can see it's going to turn out just fine. So I'm going to show you guys, this is what I'm working on right now. So you can see this quarter panel extension. You can see how tight this seam is. Granted, this is sticking up a little bit. I'll probably add a little bit of putty to this, and it'll be just fine. But this area, look how bad that is. And that's as tight as this will go. You can't, I mean, if I push this in, it starts to tilt the whole thing. It really needs to sit out like that. So what I'm gonna do is, I'm gonna take this 1/8 inch steel rod, I'm gonna weld this in place, and then I'm going to end up filling this area with some welds, and we're gonna try and get this to where it's pretty seamless and it looks pretty good. Don't be afraid to do this. Just follow along. You'll see how quickly this can be done. It's going to take me a little bit of time, but it's not that bad. All right, so what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to go ahead and weld this rod all the way almost out to the end, pushing this down in there and marking this where the rod is actually going to end at, right there. So I'm going to take off this quarter panel extension. We're going to go ahead and grind this down to bare metal, and then we're going to start welding this rod into place. Okay, let's go ahead and clean off this metal, get it ready to weld. These kind of issues are going to happen just because this is all repop metal. There's nothing you can get around. You can't get around it. I think you'll be a lot better off when it comes to time, especially if you're paying someone a pretty high rate, to go ahead and just buy the NOS stuff, and it's going to cut down on so much stuff like this. All right, so I've got my rod held in place just with this magnet, but we want the top side of this quarter panel to be right in line with the top part of that rod. So I've got my straight edge, and we're going to put this along the top, try and hold this in place, and then we're going to tack that, and we'll be able to walk the rest of it right in line. Now that's holding in place, so I no longer need this, but I will need my straight edge. All right, so we're going to go ahead and cut off the excess, and then we'll continue to weld this along the way, letting it cool, and we'll get a complete weld all the way across. We'll grind it, make sure it looks nice and good, and then we'll start sanding the back side of this just so that it contours with that quarter panel extension.
Up at night, yeah. Make all the demons quiet, yeah. We were built to thrive, yeah. I think that we've all had enough. What keeps you up at night, yeah. Make all the demons quiet, yeah. We were built.
All right, so you can see that I've got pretty much a continuous weld going all the way across. So now I'm going to go ahead and sand this top portion down. I'm going to have some little spots where I'm going to have to fill in. And then we're going to try and get our contour to make sure it fits perfectly with that quarter panel extension. Okay, so you can see I've got a line there, and the reason being is because this quarter panel starts to turn down and goes at a very slight angle all the way down. So the radius on that's pretty large. That's why you're seeing that. So what I'm going to go ahead is I'm going to go ahead and weld this up. And then we'll grind it down, and then we should have a seamless seam from the front to the back. You guys are wondering what I'm doing with that high speed. I'm using the air coming off the high speed to cool this area, and it cools it pretty quickly. And then I can go back to welding. So I'm going to go ahead and weld out the rest of these. We'll cool it down. We're going to mark it, and we're going to start sanding again. Okay, so one thing I do have to warn you about, and you saw me keep on cooling this, make sure you don't superheat this metal. That's why I was taking, on the beginning of it, I was doing a tack, and then cooling it off. This is on a curve. It's on a bend. It's got a lot more strength. It will be able to take a little bit more heat, but you put enough heat in this panel, and it will warp. So be careful about that. If you have to, just do a few tacks, let it cool, come back and do some more. Do not overheat that metal. Okay, so we're going to start sanding this edge. I want to show you something. You would think that that would be a nice straight seam right there, but of course it isn't. You can see there is a gap right there, which means this metal is going to have to curve. So we're going to go ahead and we know that this is as far out as it needs to be. It needs to come in all to the very edge right there. So we're going to draw a line across at an angle, but we're going to leave a little bit of material in the center and try and curve it around. So we know this outer part is touching, and this is where it's got to be on the very inner part. So we're going to draw a line. And you guys can see that is our line right there. So I'm going to try and round this a little bit. I'll take most of this material off. We'll round it. We'll leave a little bit of that material on. We're going to do a little bit of time. We're going to fit this on several times. All right, we are like extremely close. I may even stop right there. There's a little bit of a gap right there. I'm going to go ahead and weld a little bit of material there, but you can see I left, what, 1/8 of an inch? No, it's probably a 1/16 right there, and it seems to contour just perfect. Now we'll roll this a little bit. I'll take off that 36 grit, and I'll go down to a 180 and roll this a little bit, just so it has a little bit of a contour to it. But we're going to go ahead and add some to that. We'll roll the edge, and then we'll be done. All right, moment of truth. Here we go. Look at that. Look at the gap on that. So much better than it was before. All right, so with this being done, this thing is ready to come back apart. Fenders, hood, doors, trunk lid, everything's going to come back apart. Sanded in 80 grit, and then epoxy. Then we're going to put it all back together. We're going to start doing some body work on this. It's going to It's going to be kind of tough. I want to try and get it done in the next 3 to 4 months, either ready for paint or painted, which is pretty aggressive for me. I hope we can get to that point. Last note, don't be afraid to do this kind of work. This took me 1 to 2 hours. I'm not an expert in this stuff. I mean, I just do this stuff as a hobby. If it's bad, you just grind it back down, put some more metal in, and start all over again. If you're paying a shop $60 to $150 or whatever an hour, just imagine how much money you could save by doing those gaps yourself. So other than that, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I hope you learned something, and I hope to see you on another episode of Torqued.